IVM.
This is Storytellers and Storytellers live on tape. I'm Vineet and you're listening to me on the IVM Podcast Network. Every episode, I bring you people from the world of entertainment and we talk about their wisdom, their experiences, their learnings and their drive and ambition. On today's episode, we have someone who is also a very established, well-known, well-renowned, well-accepted storyteller, right? I know I'm throwing in adjectives there because I really don't have an introduction planned for her. Very, very glad to welcome on to this show, Mehak Mirza. Hi, Mehak.
Hi, so this is Mehak Mirza Prabhu. Bilkul.
Mehak Mirza Prabhu.
And yes, I am a storyteller, that's all. और कुछ है नहीं actually मेरे बारे में बोलने जैसे
ये जो लोग कहते हैं I am a storyteller, right? इसका क्या मतलब होता है?
So the thing is, when you say I am a storyteller, it's just like I am a dancer. I am a painter. Nobody will question you when you say something like I'm a dancer.
Right.
You know, because I think storytelling is one of the art form which is the most misunderstood in the name of the art form.
Right.
So storytelling is like a noun. So it's an art form. So if you are a storyteller, you are somebody who practices that art form. Fantastic. But telling a story is something else. Like you can tell a story through various mediums, through your corporate pitches, through your paintings, through your dance. You can tell a story. But storyteller is just one person sitting, narrating a story to someone. One person or 10,000 doesn't matter.
That's a lovely way of looking at it, right? There is storytelling, the act, and then there is storytelling, the performance, which is different, right? You are clearly someone who is both, right? Just before we got started, we were talking about how this is not about just your art. It's also about who you are and how that comes out in your stories. Mehak, tell us from wherever you think it is right to tell us how you got into storytelling. What forms of storytelling it is that you practice and where do you get your inspiration from?
Okay, that's a very, very specific question.
Yeah.
So it's very nice.
I'm trying to change. I am known for having questions that go on for like 45 seconds or longer. I am trying to turn over a new leaf. So this is me being specific.
Perfect. So let me give you a very specific answer. So I do fictional storytelling, but original fiction only. So I do not perform stories that are already written. So I write my own stories and I perform them. Character modulation through voice is something that I love to do, and that's why I try to specialize in it. I look at it as a USP and I work hard on it. And where I started exactly in 2016. And before that, I was busy being a businesswoman. No inclination or no idea whatsoever that I even had a writer in me. Forget about a performer. That came much later, in fact. So I started writing in 2016, like short stories and poems and things like that. And then once I discovered that I enjoy narrating it, telling it, not just writing, that was like this eureka moment for me. I'm like, yeah, this is it. बस ये करना है और कुछ नहीं करना है. अभी कैसे होगा पता नहीं. That's all.
और फिर कैसे हुआ?
See, because I started off with zero expectation whatsoever. It did not start with कि मैंने देखा किसी को करते हुए and then I saw कि अच्छा इसको 1 million view मिल गया है तो ये चीज करनी चाहिए तो मिल जाएगा अपने को भी. It did not start with that, or it did not start with a particular art form that I had a passion for. Right. It started reverse. It started with me literally writing a short story. A friend telling me, I'm driving, why don't you send me an audio recording instead of a written format because I cannot read right now. And I was excited about it very much कि जल्दी सुनना चाहिए. तो मैंने ऑडियो रिकॉर्डिंग के लिए शुरुआत की and I was just saying, एक बार एक लड़की है जिसका नाम है फरीहा, वो अभी उसको रेस्क्यू किया एज अ प्रोस्टिट्यूट. I started recording. I'm like, यार मजा नहीं आ रहा है, मुझे बोलने में मजा नहीं आ रहा है, सामने वाले को सुनने में क्या मजा आएगा. So then I went back and then I took a few hours and I was like, what if I can sound like Fariha in this audio? So then I was like, okay. So I went like, मेरा नाम फरीहा है. वो क्या है ना कि जब मैडम ने हमें यहाँ से रेस्क्यू किया ना, अभी हमने ये वर्ड सुना है बहुत बार तो हम समझ गए हैं. And then I started telling that story and started feeling like that character, and that was like freedom for me. I mean, suddenly I was another person and I tasted blood with that experience. And that's how it started. So I loved it. And now I went out कि अब इसका क्या करूं? Where do I go?
Let me ask you this quickly here, but 2016 is like a few years ago, right? Did you have sort of a natural inclination when you were younger towards writing stories, or I don't know. I mean, it sounds almost I'm asking sarcastically, but imaginary friends or something, right? Like kids have that. I mean, I used to for a long time in my life, I used to think that I'd be a writer as my primary vocation. Now I write for myself or whatever. But I can tag that back to always wanting to do that when I was younger, right? Like creative writing competition, या आप ऐसे writing में कुछ करते हो, stuff like that. So was that something that was there previously?
Absolutely zero. Literally. Literally, I have maximum written few poems at the back of my book, like, very stupid rhymes. That's all that I have done. And never written, nothing at all. But now I remember in my 5th grade, one teacher had written, that you are good at writing, you should pursue it, which I never pursued till the age of 33. So absolutely, in 8th grade, I stepped on stage once, very, very well prepared. First line bola about Bombay and I froze. After that, I never stepped on stage till the age of 33 again. So that's been me. But there's one thing that I remember, which I think is a good, necessary characteristic to be a good storyteller, which everybody considers negative. But now I feel that was my strength. I used to lie convincingly.
Most definitely. Most definitely. I'm fully in agreement. Whoever doesn't agree with that probably doesn't understand the quote-unquote art of storytelling, which is also something that you should check out. But we'll come to that in a second. But yeah, I fully agree with you. I mean, I am a great liar. I'm not a great storyteller yet, but I'm a great liar, and I fully agree with you. You can't do this. मतलब गुलजार साहब भी झूठ बोलते हैं.
Vineet, एक मैं बात कहती हूँ. I just heard it. Somebody tell me that the reason humans are different from all other species is only because of the art of lying. Only we can lie, no one else. So it can't be something that is negative.
Absolutely.
There has to be something to it, and art can be created to that process of lying. So it's beautiful.
I feel compelled to say this right now, and it's my mom. Yes, my mom's was a teacher, and it's very, very pertinent. We're talking about lying here. My mom's a teacher, been a teacher for about 30 years. Now she runs like personality development, coaching, spoken English, IELTS, and stuff like that, right? She's also a digital vlogger and stuff. And this evening at 5 o'clock, when we are recording, she has a session on Facebook called "Lying is Not a Vice."
Look, this was written.
Maktub feeling iska.
Absolutely.
Right. Anyway, back to you.
So yeah, so वही मैं कह रही थी that I have never had any experience in this field before, but I was creatively inclined towards whatever I did. So I was into corporate gifting. So, finding products for my clients based on the campaign that they are running so that they can gift it to their customers, sourcing it from China. So it sounded very boring job, but I tried to bring out creativity in it.
Right.
So I used to break my head trying to tell them, yeah, mug mat do, pen drive mat do, let's create something. I have a wood guy, I have a leather guy, I'll put them together, create something amazing. And that's the reason I stopped doing that, because nobody understood that language of creativity in business, at that point of time. So yeah, so it was there in me, and my dad is an artist. So
what kind of art?
So I just remember as a child, okay, so he used to take a pen and within 5 seconds, a blank paper used to turn into a masterpiece. That's all I remember, It could be anything, a plant sketch or something, or I don't know what. Right. So I think he left this legacy behind with me of being creative in a different form, maybe, but I think it's in my genes.
Most definitely. And I think it's also a sort of testament to the fact that it's never sort of too late or too early to discover what you're capable of. And then it sort of is up to you where you take it to, right? You can do it for yourself or you can do it for the world. There's a certain degree of catharsis, there's a certain degree of creativity, expression, so much that comes into it, right? That leads me to sort of what I wanted to ask you next is 2016, you discover your love for writing and then subsequently for performing as well, right? Now, I would imagine, and again, you tell me if that wasn't so, but the average person would have a lot of self-doubt. How's that for you, right? What was your initial sort of feedback loop like that started giving you the confidence that, hey, 1 second, I can be among the best who do this, right? How was that initial period for you?
No, absolutely. I had no idea I could be amongst the better ones of doing this at all. It basically started with the passion of wanting to take this to stage anyhow. So for that, I kept aside all my fear, all my self-doubt, all my freezing on stage for exactly 8 minutes. I was puking before that. I was fainting after that. Okay. So for me, the first time was absolutely intimidating. Even today, because you know what happens if stage fright is a part of your life, it has always been, you have the phobia that it can come back anytime. So even if it has been 6 years doing this, each time I have a performance, even if it is a Zoom performance, I am still unwell the entire day till it actually happens. But I have accepted it. In fact, now I feel that agar wo nahi hoga, then something is wrong. Right. Means I am not taking it that seriously or things like that.
You're not putting that much of yourself into it, maybe.
Maybe, exactly. I'm getting into a comfort zone. It's time to change then. Right. You know, things like that. So for me, it is difficult. I wouldn't say it was difficult. I'm saying it is still difficult to put myself out there. But when the art demands it, when it calls you, you have to submit. That's the only way to do it.
Lovely. Let me ask you this, and I've almost never done this, right? I've had people who create on this show, but I've never done this. But if I were to say, Mehak, tell us your journey in 5 stories, right? Just the names of 5 stories or 5 titles or 5 performances, right? Okay. Again, like I said, nice. Not going to put you on the spot and be like...
Interesting. No, it's an interesting question. I love the question, in fact.
Thank you. But yeah, if we were to say, these are the 5 stories of Mehak Mirza Prabhu's life so far, what would those be? Those stories, those performances be?
Okay, so I will talk about the stories that I have created and performed through them itself. So my first story, which put me on the map in a way, like you say, is Phir Mohabbat Karni Hai. And the thing that I always remember behind that story is next day I have a performance, and so when you go for open mics, you are not expected to be in the character or things like that. You know, you just go as yourself, you perform, and it's very casual. But I don't know what came into me. A night before that at 9 o'clock, I go and I buy a sari because that character would wear a sari. I did not even own a sari before that. Right. And somehow that made all the difference, that get up of that character. So that showed me that putting that little extra effort in your art, when your instinct and gut is telling you, listen to it. So I think that was the biggest lesson I got from that story.
Fantastic.
After that, there's the story of Mrs. Dubey. Mrs. Dubey is a 75-year-old Maharashtrian lady, and I feel she is my alter ego. So she told me that I can go beyond. I don't have to be in any limits. So the beauty of Mrs. Dubey is that when I am Mrs. Dubey, I can improvise.
Right.
Okay, I can be funny, I can create jokes and interact with the audience. As Mehak, I can't do that.
Right.
So I realized the power of character through her. And then Keri Ka Achar. Keri Ka Achar is another story which is a metaphor between how people make Keri Ka Achar is very similar to how women are molded after marriage. And that told me that I am nothing. Like, I cannot recreate that story again. It came to me as creativity. Okay, so I have to understand that I am nothing. Each time I'm writing a story, I am zero. And I cannot make my stories my benchmark ever.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So that is one. And I would say the last one is Char Pankhe. Char Pankhe is a story about depression, about suicide. And it took a lot out of me to get that out of me, because I had to revisit my phase of depression and a very dark phase of my life to get it out. And I felt very strong for doing it. So yeah.
Fantastic. Wait, was that 4 or 5?
You caught me. Yeah. Okay, and so the last one...
I'm listening. I'm listening.
Okay, the last one would be a story called Zoya Ki Diwali, which is not anywhere. But that is a story where I have experimented becoming 8 characters in one story, just through voice. Right. So that will always remain special for me. So yeah.
That's amazing. I think I'm glad for coming up with that question. The pat on my own back for a second, but that was so lovely and so nicely distilled into how those were sort of milestones in your own sort of journey as a creator, as a storyteller. Let me ask you this. I mean, I have struggled with it personally as well, right? Which is a non sort of very everyday way of putting it is writer's block, but it's not just writer's block, right? Writer's block is not like, it's not a drain कि वो block हो गया है, right? Writer's block is a complex thing. It has so many aspects, so many facets. There is fear of capability, fear of reception, there is fear of putting yourself out there. Writer's block is, like I said, a complex black box that happens, right? Have you ever encountered that?
I have had phases of not being able to write for a long time, but I'm going to quote someone here, okay? And that is Satyanshu sir, who takes script writing classes, okay?
Right.
And he said one thing which suddenly simplified everything for me about writer's block. And the thing that he said was, it's a myth. Writer's block is a complete myth, and you just have to start allowing yourself to write bad. Because the minute you start allowing yourself to write bad, suddenly all the pressures that you just spoke about,
Right.
all go away. Nobody
beautiful.
can stop you from writing bad. You are stopping yourself because you want yourself to create your Picasso masterpiece right at that moment, which may not happen.
Right.
So then this is something that I completely took on to me. I tell my students also this, and I completely live by it now. When I have nothing that is coming, I write absolute rubbish on my paper. It doesn't matter.
Right.
But I have to pour it out. वो होता है ना कि अगर आप नल बंद करके रखो और काफी टाइम बाद अगर खोलो, so what will come out? Obviously कचरा will come out. ठीक है? But if you accept that कचरा and still keep the null open, that's where fresh water will start coming in.
Fantastic. I can see why you run a successful storytelling school. Tell us more about that. Tell us about JhumriTalaiya.
JhumriTalaiya is where my heart lives right now.
Right.
So JhumriTalaiya is a fictional storytelling school that I run. And I started it doing online even before this lockdown period. So I used to take group workshops earlier. And eventually I realized that storytelling is something that is so personal, is therapy. And if you want to bring out a storyteller from a person, you have to actually remove the hidden layers of the person out, and which cannot happen in a group. There is no way you can do it. Also, the stage needs that person as he is in his house. The way he talks to his mother, to his best friend. क्योंकि दुनिया ने वो नहीं देखा है, बाकी सब कुछ देख लिया है.
Right.
And till the time you cannot empower somebody for their weaknesses, their flaws, which can only happen one-on-one. कि आप स्टैमर करते हो, कोई बात नहीं, स्टेज पे जाके स्टैमर करके कहानी सुनाओ, लोग आपको याद रखेंगे. You will become an inspiration. Things like to make a person believe that अगर आपको देख के कोई बोलता है यार क्या बंदे ने मस्त किया है, amazing, too good. ठीक है, you're doing good. But if somebody looks at you when you perform and says, if he can do it, even I can do it. Now that's a win. And that will happen only when you show off your flaws completely. So it started with that I want to empower people to remove the storyteller out of them without feeling that confidence is important, diction is important, pronunciation is important. No, those are secondary things. There is something much more deeper. So JhumriTalaiya happened. Today, JhumriTalaiya has about 150 one-on-one students with whom I have worked through WhatsApp video calls and Zoom calls now to train them. And then we recently started a group and we call ourselves Jhumrikars. So I had this dream that there'll be a city jahan pe there'll be thousands of storytellers sitting under a tree and just telling stories. But wo digitally ho chuka hai already. I thought it will happen when I'm 80 years old, but it has already started. So we meet weekly. We give each other storytelling concepts, ideas,
prompts and stuff.
Prompts, challenges. अपने अंदर ही competitions होते हैं. IGTV पे हम ही वीडियो रिकॉर्ड करके डाल देते हैं. क्यों वेट करना है किसी प्लेटफॉर्म के लिए? डाल देते हैं. At least you are learning, creating, and putting out the product in the universe. फिर वो उसकी किस्मत है ना. You move to the next story. This attitude towards your craft is what I wanted to instill in people. And it's happening.
That's beautiful. Let me ask you something that's a little different. I mean, and while I totally see the reason in your method, right, which is a one-on-one amplify your flaws. It reminds me of man management in football or in teams, right? It's the teaching model that we've abandoned. We've gone for a one-to-many teaching model always, right? But let me ask you this. A lot of us and a lot of storytellers in that sense, right? And I come from a group of people who pride themselves on at least being witnesses to stories being told, good stories being told, being part of bringing those stories out, right? A very dear friend of mine who's on this show as well, Nisarg Mehta, quit a corporate job, moved to Bombay, started writing, now has written a couple of web series and a film, right? Again, someone who's realized that, hey, I want to do that at 28 or 29. He realized that, right? This is a question that I asked him as well, which is a lot of people struggle to balance what is essentially a creative endeavor with putting food on the table. In your experience or in what you've seen happen or how the industry is, right? How does a writer who's still learning his craft, right, balance the fact that I need to make certain amount of money, but I also want to make sure that I'm not writing the next Ekta Kapoor serial. Right? Again, I love you, Ekta, no problem with you, but sorry, your serials have a problem, right? But I'm using that loosely and lightly, right? But how do you do that, right? There's always the option of saying, abandon my craft because there is demand, right? भर देते हैं हम content की pipeline, right? As opposed to discovering your voice or putting yourself out there. How do you negotiate that in this day and age?
So very early on in this journey, when I started, I had reached a point in my business which had come to a standstill. So making this as my means of survival was actually my survival instinct kicking in, right, and the businesswoman also kicking in. So very early on, I realized that if I want to make my living out of this, I have to treat my art and business separate.
Right.
I cannot mix the two. So today, if somebody asks, Mehak, can we make enough money out of being storyteller? I said the question is wrong. Your question should be, will I be busy enough while doing this? So if there is something that is going to take your 9 to 5 that otherwise you would have given to a job, if it is keeping you that busy, okay, then definitely you are going to make money out of it because you are getting projects. That it means that you're getting projects. It otherwise means that you are putting more and more content out in the universe. So either ways, it is going to work for you. So first of all, have proper goals, proper plans. In 1 year, when you start a business, you have this period where you know that, it will be a breakthrough. I may not make any profits in the first year. The same way you have to think about this. That 1 year, it is only going to be about me putting out videos consistently, good quality, learning from my mistakes, understanding the market, what is my USP. So for me, when I started with fiction, but there was no market for fiction at that point of time. Original fiction was nowhere in picture during that time. What was running was poetry and spoken word in open mics.
Right.
And I am not from a theatre background, so I could not take my craft to theatre as well. So for me, when I went there were very less avenues for me to present my fiction storytelling.
Right.
I had people coming and telling me things like, क्या कर रही है ये? मतलब ये अलग-अलग आवाजें क्यों निकाल रही है? People could not understand the concept of what is happening when there are 10 poetry performances and then one girl coming and talking as a kid and then as an old lady at the same time. It takes time to sink in.
Right.
अगर तभी मैंने switch कर लिया होता, I do write poetries, I can write spoken word, but तभी अगर मैंने switch कर लिया होता, मैं अपना USP कभी बना ही नहीं पाती. Brand बना ही नहीं पाती. So you have to look at yourself as a brand. What is the new thing that you're putting in the market? Who is your target audience? And the most important, you have to understand what emotion are you trying to fulfill of your audience. Be aware of these things just as you would be about your product. And the second most important thing is, upgrade yourself. जैसे A phone का होता है iPhone 1, iPhone 2, iPhone 3, वैसे ही there has to be a Mehak 1, Mehak 2, Mehak 3.0. Right. Otherwise, if you're going to repeat your glitches and bugs even when you are 3.0, it's not going to work. So innovate yourself constantly, assess the market, put yourself out there, and you are the product. You have to accept it. If all of this you do, okay, you're not going to go wrong. You will make this a living. क्योंकि देख रहे हैं ना, कर रहे हैं लोग, मतलब possibility है. बिल्कुल. As simple as that. So now whether you have a plan to do it in the right, proper, planned manner, or else there are people who do it for you. You can have a manager on board. You can have a social media person on board. So look for specialist, invest in it. करना है तो बहुत सारी चीजें हैं जो आप कर सकते हो, for sure. But अगर ये attitude रहेगा कि because now I'm an artist, मैं दिन में 1 घंटा काम करूंगा, जब मूड आएगा तब, because I'm an artist. And then people, एक वीडियो चल जाना चाहिए जैसे ही मैं डाल दूं. It won't work like that. Your attitude has to be right if you want to make this into a livelihood.
Absolutely. I think those were very, very crystalline nuggets of wisdom coming our way. What I'm going to do quickly, Mehak, is go into a short break. And then we'll come back on the other side to talk a little bit more about a couple of things that I have in my mind that I want to talk to you. But so far, it's just wonderful talking to you, wonderful getting some of my personal questions and existential doubts that I have about the creative process sorted. Right back after these messages on storytellers and storysellers.
I want to thank Intel for supporting our show. We're all loving working from home, but let's be honest, there are complications to this. For example, getting help from IT folks if your PC is down can be a challenge because you can't just walk up to the IT support desk anymore to get your issue sorted out. Well, you'll be happy to hear that I have a solution for all your work from home pains. The Intel vPro platform. The platform comes packed with Intel Active Management technology that lets your IT teams remotely manage your system, fix the problems even when the PCs aren't near them or are unresponsive, especially with the reduced desk site visits. So it means more time getting your work done and less time spent on getting support. What's more, the vPro platform also maximizes all your PC security, stability, and performance needs. Visit intel.in/more with vPro, that's VPRO, to discover how you can do more of what you want and less of what you don't. If you're listening on the IVM Podcast Android app, you will be able to click the link that's visible to you now.
And we're back on Storytellers and Storysellers with Mehak Mirza Prabhu. We're talking about storytelling. Mehak, before we went into the break, you were talking about Mehak 1, Mehak 2, Mehak 3, how to upgrade and innovate yourself. I'm sure for most people in the creative arts, these upgradations are closely tied to either personal milestones or personal growth or some events in your life. I want you to share with us how you upgraded yourself once you went from businesswoman to mom to famous person. How did you sort of bring these out in your storytelling and sort of cope with all of this?
Okay, so first let me start with the way the priority list goes in my life. So it will definitely start with being a mother.
Of course.
So my daughter is 14 years old and everything that I do in today's time, it has to pass through her. So she's my filter. Even a small reel that she taught me basically how to make reels first of all, because I was like, 15 seconds mein, how do I tell stories? And then she sat me down. She's like, look, mama, if things are going to change, you have to go with them. Otherwise, it's not going to work. You cannot sit here and tell people, look, I can't do it because 15 seconds mein kahani kaise suna sakte. Audience is not going to understand that. This is how today's teenagers speak. So right now, you can say that I have gone back to my teenage learning age where I'm just absorbing everything that I am learning new, looking at her.
And I see the result of that on your Instagram as well. The new stuff that you're trying on Reels. It's very interesting. It's something I haven't seen in other places or other.
You met Choti. Wait, I'll make you meet Choti.
I think it was Choti that was the one that
I will make you meet. I'll tell Choti to meet you right now. She has a new story she wants to tell you. Okay, she'll tell you. Okay. Vineet uncle, मैं आपको एक कहानी सुनाऊं?
सुनाओ.
पता है, एक बड़े से जंगल में एक छोटा सा हाथी रहता था, लेकिन कहानी आगे बढ़ी नहीं क्योंकि लोगों ने आके जंगल तो काट दिया। छोटी, ऐसी बातें नहीं करते। चल विनीत अंकल को कुछ अच्छा प्यारा सुनाना। हाँ, क्यों ऐसे लोगों ने जंगल काटा ये सारी बात करती है? अच्छे लोग भी तो होते हैं ना। हाँ विनीत अंकल, होते हैं ना, जैसे मेरी नानी और आप। बाय बाय।
Beautiful.
So yeah, that was a Choti podcast bombing.
That was beautiful. Yeah, thank you Choti and Nani for showing up on Storytellers and Storysellers. Now we have 3 guests. But that was beautiful. I think I love it. I love the way you said that I'm going back to my teenage learning phase with my teenage daughter, which is just great, right? Please, sorry, but back to you.
So yeah, so every phase of your life is actually teaching you something. Vineet, I'll say one thing that, जैसे आपने कहा, there is no age to start when it especially comes to any change in your career that you want to take. And in art, more so, because there is no structured pattern. Nobody has given you कि BCom करो, MCom करो, MBA करो, फिर ये बनो, फिर CEO बन जाओगे. Nobody has given you that graph. Right. Here you have to find your own path, your own process to reach wherever you don't even know where you want to reach, first of all. Right. Correct? So it is adventurous as well as intimidating, the entire thing. So what age you start will completely depend on what life has taught you. The only school you have here is life. Right. So till the time you are not ready, you will not get started. So being a businesswoman got me ready to make this into a source of livelihood. Being a mother is training me how to learn constantly, not being judgmental all the time about others. And the famous part जो आपने कहा, ठीक है? So I wouldn't say famous, मतलब वो नहीं इतना, it's subjective. Constantly it's subjective. You look at somebody else and you feel that they are more famous.
Right. No, I didn't mean it like
But celebrity is something
famous.
I love. I love the word celebrity. Right. I feel that celebrity is a beautiful word and I embrace it because definitely I celebrate my life today. So I feel extremely happy कि यार 40 साल में इतना कुछ हो गया. I am waiting to see life till 80 and more. Right. I want to live a long life to see how it unfolds, what are its twists, and how much it tests me, because the minute it tests me, I come out of it feeling better about myself. So all this is beautiful, and definitely that comes through stories. Definitely that will come through your art, what you're presenting to the world, because you become a medium to pass on the message of what life taught you. That's the simplest process that you are a part of.
Absolutely, and I love it. I think the best creators that I've spoken to, right, the best of them, take no credit in creation, right? I made it. Sure, I wrote this line or I wrote this song, but it could have happened to anybody, right? It happens. It's a factor of the life you've lived, the thoughts you've had, the people you've loved, so many other things, right? And when you really think about it, right, and this is one of my favorite things to talk about is what are the stories you remember? The stories you remember are the stories that someone decided should be told to many people, right? But all of us have stories there, right? Like आपकी जो कहानी है, कहीं ब्राजील में किसी और के साथ वो कहानी same चीज शायद हो रही है.
Absolutely. Right? I say the exact same thing, that what is fiction? Fiction is something that has not yet happened to you, but has happened to someone else.
Absolutely.
And it has just come to you, like a dream comes to you.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, because I think as a creator and as the process of creation, like you mentioned, you discovered your own USP, your own brand, the way you want to present yourself as a creator, right? I mean, one of my favorite writers, and although it's now borderline cancellation worthy to say that one of your favorite writers is David Foster Wallace, but he says writers take how you appear most seriously, right? What does my audience think of me? What does our audience think of my writing, my characters, etc., etc.? Which means that any accomplished creator, especially of the writing or performance types, is always curating what your output looks or sounds like, right? Your taste begins at home. How did you arrive at this, right? At your USP, at what was your taste of what my content of my content is going to look like? What was your sort of set of inspiration? What did you read? How did you own this craft and move towards what you wanted to put out?
Right. So the first thing that I still stand by is listening to my intuition, my instincts. So if I am able to listen 10 times in audio format without getting bored, without even one point feeling that, yaar, yahan pe maza nahi aa raha hai. I stop there, I rectify it, and I go ahead. I keep doing this process till I don't completely feel, as an audience, I don't enjoy it, or it doesn't give me the emotion that I intend to give out. I should feel that. That is my first step. Second is inner circle of audience and critics. So you have 2-3 people जो मुंह पे बोल देंगे कि ये क्या लिखा है, या मुंह पे तारीफ करेंगे. ठीक है? So you find those people around you. They can be friends, they can be family, they can be anyone, a stranger, somebody whom you just Insta इस पे डाला मेरा ये सुनो, and his feedback really meant something to you. It was you were on the same page. Look out for these people. There are people, and you need these people as your inner audience. Once that's done, put it out. First time you put it out, take a criticism. Whatever you feel makes sense, imbibe it. नहीं तो छोड़ दो. लेकिन उसके बाद you move on. Finish. Your journey over there with that story has ended. Now the story has its own fate and वो आगे अपने हिसाब से चलेगी. You move to the next story, back to zero, back from square one.
Right.
So that's the process that works for me completely.
Fantastic. And how about inspiration or influences? What do you read? What do you consume that feeds the process for you?
I am not much of a reader, and I've faced a lot of flack for this, that I don't believe in the fact that to become a better writer, you need to read more. I don't believe in that, because I feel that reading is something that will bring about other qualities in you, like patience, visualization powers, and things like that, better vocabulary. But for being a writer, especially for an art form which is as raw and pure and simple as storytelling, where it's just about me sitting and telling, just the way I would do in any normal social gathering. I just need to be open. My heart has to open. That's all. So my experiences are more about looking in the nature and talking to the trees, kind of a thing, or just looking at the sky and feeling and actually understanding what I'm feeling. Like, is my heart fluttering, or is it heavy, or is it... So what my head is feeling, what my heart is feeling, because only then I will know how I'm impacting my audiences when I utter a word. So it's a very organic process more than books for me.
Sure. And are there other performers that you look at, and other performers, especially in the Indian scene, that you look at and say, hey, there's someone who's doing well, or someone who you could maybe learn from, stuff like that?
So there are many who are doing extremely well, for sure. And one thing that really impresses me is consistency, more than anything else, because good, bad doesn't really matter. Some pieces might be good, some may be bad. That doesn't matter. But, like Amandeep Singh is there, Saini Raj, Priya Malik, Yaya Bhootwala, Swaraj Singh. Consistently, when you put out content consistently, I think that's the biggest win. And that's what I would like to learn. And I would like to do more of that. That is one thing. Apart from that, there is one thing that I strive for in my individual stories, which is, I know that I want my audience to take back an emotion with them when I end the story. And for them to accept that, to take it, I have to create the need for it also. It's like, अगर मुझे आपको डिस्प्लिन देनी है, तो मुझे आपको पहले सरदर्द देना पड़ेगा, वरना आप डिस्प्लिन लोगे क्यों? So I try in my stories that I create this contrast where I first create a need for something. Like, I want them to want happiness by giving them sadness, and then I want to satisfy it for them. I feel that अगर वो हो जाता है किसी कहानी में, and that makes me really happy. So I strive for it.
Is that your famous कहानी में twist?
Kahani Mein Twist is the only personal story that I have done, and that's something else altogether. But yes, in all my stories, आपने जो ये पूछा ना कि when I make stories, what is the important thing I'm looking for? I look at it as if I am the audience. तो मुझे पसंद है कि अगर कहानी के end में कुछ ऐसा हो जो twist हो, something that I did not expect, something that is a surprise for me. So naturally it happens in my stories. End में कुछ तो होगा that is a surprise for the audience.
And that is a surprise that many of your listeners, I'm sure, look forward to from your stories. I am, for sure, look forward to the twists in your stories. Bringing this right about to close, let me ask you a couple of things. So you mentioned the kind of guys that you're looking at doing well. You said consistency was what you were trying to emulate and want to do more of as well, right? Apart from the need to reach more audiences, what is it that keeps you driven with your stories, right? What is it that makes you feel the continued need for more and more of your stories to be told? I know I've never asked a question like
innovation.
I'm also, I'm also hearing myself, and I'm like, I've never asked a question like this before.
I think you have asked me the perfect question, because that is what is the driving force for me right from start. That is innovation in storytelling.
Right.
Constantly. So you tell a story in third person format, that is a classic style. Then you become characters. That's what I push people. Write your own story, become character. It's so simple, do it. Change voice, it's so simple, do it. Now go beyond. Then the next problem I realized in storytelling is कि आप अगर एक कहानी एक बार सुन लो, you cannot listen to it again and again and again. Correct? But in songs, you can do that.
Yeah.
You can constantly listen to one song on a loop.
Right.
So that's where my story, Ek Raaz Bataun Main, came into picture. Where if you listen to it, go back and listen to it, you'll love it. It's my favorite in today's this. So it's a story that you can listen to it n number of times because it's a story musical. So it's innovation in storytelling. So I'm constantly looking for innovating what I'm doing.
And that's the purest sort of drive to doing things, right? Isn't it? Doing something new, doing something different, taking what you know and building it.
And saying yes. And saying yes. If somebody says a brand comes, you can do this, yes. फिर देखो क्या होता है उसमें.
Before I ask you for your recommendations, my sort of last question to you is, what do you think of this space overall, right? I know that in India, live performance culture is not really that much of a thing. Even though we've had Spek Mekes and Nukkad Nataks and all of that, there has been tradition, but that tradition has been lost. It's not something, I wouldn't say lost, but it's not something that is translated as well into a sort of more urban organized culture. But it's happening, right? With spoken, with Rekhta, with so many other events, with now digital performances also coming through. What is your take on this space, right? And here's where I'm coming from. Let me qualify that question, right? And it's as much as a performance question as it is a writing question, right? Our industry generally doesn't give writers their due in a big way. It's a constant struggle, right? We've had abhi jo lyricist wali puri baat hui hai, Swanand sir and Varun ji, sabne jo kiya. Writers has always been a problem, right? Usme interesting, innovative, original stories getting copied, getting inspired, so much already in a problematic situation. Usme there is a side where performance is being pushed forward, right? So the space has become super dynamic. What's your take on where this goes from a writer performer's perspective?
Vineet, मेरे हिसाब से ना वो इतना complex है ना. At a certain point of time, you will have to let go of it. Right. उसके बारे में सोचते रहेंगे जो अपने हाथ में है ही नहीं. It is out of your control. What is in your control is creating your craft. What is in your control is putting the contracts in place as much as you can at the point of when I recently wrote a script for a short film. So the person on the other end was also willing to work with good people. There are good people. If we keep seeing at the bad side, we will be scared to venture out. You know, your experiences will teach you. एक mistake करोगे, अगली बार वो नहीं करोगे. But at the end of the day, अगर लिखा है वो होना तो वो हो जाएगा. वही बात है. So you have to take it with a pinch of salt. Knowing it is very important. Like all the things that you just said. Now, if it is out there, somebody listens to this podcast, okay, and they will make a list of things in their mind. कि okay, ये भी होता है. They are aware of it. अगली बार कोई उनको approach करेगा, भाई contract बना पहले. So be aware of things. Understand what is happening. Don't close your eyes and just trust people blindly.
And don't fall for just the glitz and the glamour.
Exactly. If people are telling you कि आपको exposure मिलेगा, नहीं बाबा, मैं light bill भेजती हूँ. Simple. You know, you can actually talk to people and they will understand your language. It's as simple as that, but you have to express yourself that way. Right. First of all, you have to understand your own worth and value. वो जब तक नहीं होगा, तब तक क्या ही आगे हो सकता है? You know, if you value yourself, सामने वाला will value. As simple as that. So start a journey inwards rather than blaming outwards.
That's so simple, but so difficult to follow for a lot of people. And your thoughts on the communes and the Rekhtas of the world, putting things together, finally giving this space such a great push. I know there's Paper Tale, there's Storyteller, there's so many more other people, but this whole audio space, right, audio visual space is obviously growing at a pace that's only been matched by sort of video a few years ago. What's your take?
Amazing, because now we have an industry. We can call it an industry. It gives us credibility. Brands are coming to us. Now you are seeing actors venturing into spoken word and storytelling. You know, I remember people used to ask me, like, आप कभी Bollywood try करोगे? And I used to be like, you know, you're asking me that question because you feel Bollywood is at a level higher. A time will come when somebody will ask a actor कि आप acting बहुत अच्छा करते, storytelling क्यों नहीं try करते? You know, so if we are getting that industry status now, this entire thing, which is beautiful. We are a great place to be right now as storytellers, as spoken word artists. So let's make the most of it and let's respect it and let's retain it. That's
Beautiful.
most important.
Beautiful. Very, very mature optimism there from Mehak Mirza Prabhu. Mehak, my last question, this time, I promise last question, is something that I ask all my guests before I let them go. I want you to recommend some piece of entertainment for my listeners. Could be anything. Could be a story, could be a song. People have recommended memes, they've recommended books, whatever it is, right? Would love to hear one, maybe three, maybe five, as many as you'd like, but stuff that's close to your heart, stuff that that's been important to you.
Perfect. I'll be very specific here then. Music. There's a band called Alif. Their music inspires me beyond words because it's full of emotions. You listen to it and it will inspire you. It will open up floodgates of emotions for you. Right. So listen to Alif. Most importantly, listen to independent musicians and figure out which is that one that hits your heart. Right. Bollywood ke alawa suno music. That is one thing. And Indian music, there is a lot. Khazana bhara pada hai. Books. Fountainhead is an excellent book that I keep going back to because it talks about such a beautiful thing that ego is good. And I like books that talk about things that we feel are negative, but it actually justifies it for you, that it can also be positive. So Fountainhead is one book.
Sure.
Movie, there is a movie called Girl Interrupted.
Right.
It stirs something inside me. So when I want to get into a dark zone, a little psycho zone, that's the movie I go for. So by that, I actually want to say that if you are into any art form, the emotion that you want to create through your story, expose yourself to a medium that is giving the same emotion to you. So it can be a book, a song, anything. But rather than thinking about kya topic pe likhun, think ye kis emotion mein fit karta hai, and then expose yourself to that emotion in any format. Either your past memory, it can even be that. So that's where this movie comes into my mind. Each time I want to write a story which is a little bit of disturbed mental health, I go to this movie. I just watch it and then I sit to write. So, and Gulzar Saab ko padho. I think what Mother Teresa is for beauty pageant winners is Gulzar Saab for us.
Beautiful.
It's like the way he thinks. Let it inspire you to write original stuff with different thinking. So, yeah, create original. Simple.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I am going to title this episode that creating original content or creating original stories with Mehak Mirza Prabhu. Mehak, it has been an absolute pleasure speaking to you for the last 45 minutes to an hour or so. I'm feeling more inspired to go back to writing, and I hope my listeners are too, right? It's just wonderful to see someone filled with so much positivity and optimism, and so clear about what makes storytelling good, not just for people who are quote unquote talented, but for everyone. Do check out, my listeners, please do check out JhumriTalaiya before you stop listening to this episode. I know you're listening to it on your phone, so just open that Chrome tab and go to JhumriTalaiya and look for Mehak Mirza Prabhu.
Yeah, they can reach me on Instagram and always available.
Yeah, you're Mehak Mirza Prabhu on Instagram?
Yes,
right?
Everywhere Mehak Mirza Prabhu. Ekloti.
Right, that's M-E-H-E-K.
A-K.
Okay, that's M-E-H-A-K, Mehak Mirza Prabhu. Thank you so much for sparing time this lovely afternoon and talking to us about storytelling. This has been a great episode. Thank you so much for listening. This is Vineet Kanabar saying goodbye.
Have you ever wondered how successful people do their thing? How do they navigate the challenges they often face? Are you wondering about the future of restaurants, film, education, technology, and everything else in between? Hi, I'm Gauri Devidayal, best known for being one of the brains behind The Table, an award-winning restaurant in Bombay. One thing my life as a restaurateur has given me is the opportunity to meet with some truly inspiring people, most often just by chatting with strangers at the community table. And that's what this podcast is about. It's about learning the new dimensions of business and understanding how different people swim this sea. It's an opportunity for me to pick their brains and ask them all the questions on my mind, whether it's about learning from their past experiences or talking about future trends. Through their journeys, stories, and insights, I hope you too, like me, will come away inspired and energized. So come, join me every Wednesday with your favorite drink because this round is on me.
Hi, my name is Anupam Gupta. I'm B50 on Twitter. I am the host of Paisa Vaisa, a show that talks money. On my show, I speak to experts from every field of money and finance, from stock markets, equities, debt funds, credit cards, life insurance, every possible area of money and finance that you can think of. We even did an episode on cryptocurrency. I've got fantastic guests from mutual funds to personal finance experts everywhere. Robo-advisory, startups, just name it, we've got it. At Paisa Vaisa, we help you make smart decisions about money. You work hard for money. Now make your money work hard for you. New episodes out every Monday, and you can listen to my show on the IVM Podcast app or any other podcasting app that you have.